rather than sending out a tweet.
True that. All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 47 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. Bill, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Fantasy football has been a rough for me this year. A lot of injuries. It's really I usually build my teams deep, and I'm still struggling with depth. But other than that, life is good. Happy to be here. Glad we get to talk again.
Yeah, man. Same here. Love the fact that we get to meet up. We get to chit chat a little bit. We get to see what is going on and what is going on in the world of not only fantasy football, but what's going on in the world of the NFL.
Oh, we're not talking about the debate. I joke.
A couple people on Twitter got me a little.
Nah, I won't be doing that. Don't worry.
Revved up about that, and not for the reasons that most people would probably think. It's not even about being on one side or the other. It's just about
Yep.
Nothing getting accomplished.
Right on.
So,
all right, on to football. I should have shut my mouth.
Yeah, right. We're moving on to football, as Bill Belichick would say. All right, so we're gonna hit the news. We're gonna do what we did last week and what we're gonna do every week. We're gonna kind of take a quick look at all the games and just give a couple of little tidbits and maybe chit chat for a few minutes about each. All right, so last Thursday, Dolphins Jags. Entertaining game. I mean, obviously, all of the pregame banter between Gardner Minshew and Ryan Fitzpatrick was funny. It was good to see two guys that aren't taking themselves too seriously and having fun. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, this is their chosen profession, but they're playing a kid's game, and it's good to kind of see that come out, especially with those two guys. So they were funny. Beard versus mustache. It was a good time. But onto the game. You know what? These are two guys that we didn't talk about a lot going into the season, and kind of, at least on our show, I haven't talked too much about on the pod. So James Robinson and Myles Gaskin, they're good. They're good. They're good on your fantasy team. I mean, you can say what you want about them as actual NFL players, but especially James Robinson. Damn, that guy's putting up points. I mean, I told you about this. I don't even know if I mentioned it on the pod, but I play in a high stakes league with my brother-in-law, and week after week one, I spent 50% of my fab on James Robinson, and the league destroyed us. They were like 50% on this guy who plays for the Jags, and that dude has been nothing but piling up points. And you don't hear a lot about how stupid, quote unquote, the move was to spend 50% of your fab. So, what do you think about James Robinson? What do you think about Myles Gaskin?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that James Robinson's a little bit more exciting, somebody that I would definitely want to keep my eye on more. Gaskin, I mean, he's getting the volume, but he's not like super efficient with the volume. So I'm not really sure how to feel about him. I mean, maybe he stays in that role for this season, but I'm just not super. I would probably move him for any decent offer, to be honest, unless I truly needed a running back. But I don't necessarily have expectation that he's still going to be the starter in like week 10. So, right. But Robinson, I feel pretty good about. Maybe you lose a little bit of, a few touches once, Armstead and Ozigbo come back.
Yeah.
Maybe he loses a little bit of goal line work. Who knows? But I mean, he looks like a running back. You know what I mean? Like he's like, just the way he kind of runs, like you can kind of see how he can be elusive. Just he kind of has this like, swerve to his run that just makes it hard for people to tackle him. And he's he was the only shining star for them in the last game. So um, yeah, Minshew didn't look great. So I mean, it was it was pretty much his show, and that was it on that side of the ball.
Yeah, it's weird watching James Robinson run because he runs with power and runs with speed and elusiveness at the same time. And it's like weird to watch because it's like you're almost like, no, he's a plotter. No, he's like a fast guy who's shifty, but he does it all at the same time, which is kind of weird to watch when I'm
Mm-hmm.
watching it because usually, I mean, big guys can be elusive, but they're usually not doing it at the same time. And quick guys can be powerful in spurts, but his running style is just it's like a conglomeration of everything all at once. And I mean, it's funny because I wanted to put out a tweet today saying, the biggest problem with James Robinson, especially in Dynasty, is that the James Robinson owners, I think, want more than the people who are trying to acquire him are willing to give. And obviously, I know, like, yes, trades have been made for James Robinson. I'm not saying, you can't get him but I mean, I've seen in just about every league I'm in, the owner has put him on the trade block or has made it known, like, hey, I'm willing to trade James Robinson. And I'm like I'm willing to acquire him, but you're probably looking in that first-ish area, that low first round area, and I'm looking in that like mid second round area. And
Yeah.
like I don't think they're going to budge on their value, which by the way, they shouldn't. If that's what you value him at,
Yep.
that's what you should be looking for. But I'm also not going to budge on my value. And maybe this is just maybe if I had put that tweet out there, it would have just been me talking to myself. But um, I got a trade offer today. Jerry O'Shea, sell that James Robinson. And I agree, especially, and you may want to even, depending on what your team makeup is and what you think your team is going to be this year, you might even want to wait a couple more weeks and maybe even build up two or three more of these type of games. Because then all his price is going to do is go up. Like there's going to be a point where even I am going to say if he strings along two or three more games like he has been, where I go, got to give up the first now if you want him. Like and Shane Manila, our boy, friend of the show, Shane Manila, just sent me a trade offer in Dynasty Trades HQ1, the OG Dynasty Trades League. 16 teams, super super deep. A first and a second for James Robinson, and I'm just like, I don't think his value is unfair, but it doesn't match up with my value. Like, and I'm sure, knowing Shane, he probably sent that trade to a few people. I wouldn't be shocked if I get an alert on my phone during the pod that says somebody accepted that trade. Somebody who is running back desperate, maybe they lost that CMC, maybe they lost that Saquon. Um, maybe they have Joe Mixon who hasn't been doing it, So, yeah, I get it. It's just I feel like there may be a value gap between the buyers and the sellers.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of reminds me of Philip Lindsay a little bit coming out. It's just kind of a very similar thing where he kind of took over that role from being undrafted. I mean, we had a little bit more of a notice with Lindsay because we saw it in the preseason. But I mean, imagine you get 2 years of Robinson like you got 2 years of Lindsay, and I
Mhm.
mean, is that worth a first? Probably. And is it worth a first and a second? You know, if you're hard up for a running back, maybe. So I agree. I'm probably not paying that. I'm probably not paying a first.
Right.
But I'm probably going to be late to the game, and I'll never end up with them. Probably the early. I might pay like an early second. If I really needed them and I really believed in my team. But I mean, I would have to be hard up because I think that I can find somebody at some point that's at that price that's going to help me. Maybe not quite as much, but it'll help me enough.
Yeah, I agree, and I think part of that too is my projection of what the Jags are going to be. I don't think they're going to do well this year. I think they may be in line for maybe not Trevor Lawrence. I think there are a few other teams that are worse than them that will probably be in that Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. But what about Justin Fields? What about Trey Lance? And then come back around in the second round. And if a Travis Etienne or Chuba Hubbard is sitting there in the second, maybe they go, James Robinson, thanks for the memories, but we're going to get the stud, to pair with our, big time quarterback. It's just kind of how I'm looking at it. And then again, I could be totally wrong. And they love James Robinson and they go, well, running backs are, interchangeable and disposable, which is the NFL mentality. And they don't grab anyone or they grab someone in the sixth round to, be a backup or whatever. So who knows, just the way I'm thinking about it. But it's a fun debate, fun philosophical debate. So we're going to move on now. 49ers Giants. Look, Mullins is good. Jeff Wilson got 2 TDs. And dude, the Giants are just bad. they're not a good NFL team, and for the most part, they're not good for your fantasy team. So I know one of your friends, one of your podcasting compatriots, Shane Swagzilla, he is a big Mullins fan. And I mean, he balled out. He had 370, 380 yards last week. I get it's the Giants and they're bad, but listen, not everybody is doing that. I don't care who the opponent is and how good or bad they are. He did well with, weapons that were coming off of injury or just not very good, and he still managed to pull that off. Jeff Wilson is a guy I've been on for like 3 years, and he doesn't get a lot of burn end zone, which makes me love him. And dude, is there any Giant that you're like excited to have on your team right now?
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast earlier in the week, and I can't remember if it was Roto World or if it was CBS, but they were asking basically like, who do you want on this offense, if anybody? And the only one that anybody could say, and I kind of agree with them, is Golden Tate. Like, I mean, Golden Tate just always seems to get, he's going to get you 6 to 9 targets per game, right, and he'll usually catch, 3/4 of them. So, like, you're not going to, like, if he's like your last flex or something like that, I mean, I'm fine having him on my team for that. Other than that, I mean, I don't want Ingram because you don't know what the heck you're getting. I mean, Slayton maybe. I mean, I don't know. Like, but I'm not happy. I'm not happy starting anybody with the exception of Tate. And as for Mullins, yeah, I mean, he did great. Like, I mean, I just, you said, well, yeah, it is the Giants, but, well, it is the Giants. Like, we don't even have to put the but after it because, like, I mean, I don't necessarily, like, he's not, like a lot of people claim that he's better than Garoppolo. I don't think that's true. I don't think he's that much worse than Garoppolo. But, if Garoppolo was playing that game, who's to say he didn't do the same thing? It's just one of those things where we'll never know, and that sort of thing. But obviously Shanahan likes Garoppolo more, or else Mullins would be the quarterback, and it's just one of those things where, like, I like Mullins too. I've had him anytime anybody dropped him over the last 2 seasons. I've added him on my roster if I'm, in a 14-team super flex. So,
right.
He looked good though. I mean, you can't argue with that. And I mean, there's going to be a market for him. So just to be able to have him on your roster, if he's available, I say just add him. And I highly doubt he's not on a roster right now. But maybe when Garoppolo comes back and starts playing, you can make an offer for Mullins and maybe get a starter next year or something like that. You know what I mean? You just might have to wait. So maybe make an offer once Garoppolo comes back and get him a little bit cheaper than now.
Yeah, and this is also one of those moves when you're talking about Mullins where even if you're a bad team, you're 0-3, it's the rebuild, what's going on. Your plan was never to compete. You drop a ton of money on Mullins, and after a game like this, you turn around, even in a super flex, and ask everybody in your league for a second, and just see if like someone just goes, man, I just want to put 370 up, and hits that accept, and you turned, let's just say 50% of your fab into a second round pick. I mean, for a rebuild, that's a great move. I love those kind of moves, especially when I'm in a rebuild. Get that, get the free agent that everyone wants, and then just turn them into a pick, and don't even let those points affect your rebuild, and hopefully, your pick turns on. But you brought up Darius Slayton for a little bit, and a lot of people like Slayton going in, and I was unsure about him. And so I looked at his stats. He's kind of like a Amari Cooper light to me, where he has some big blow up games and he just kills it. And I'm just looking at his 2019 game log, because he played almost every game, I think. He played 14 games. He hits you with like a 3 for 82, which isn't too bad. 4 for 62 and a touchdown, 2 for 50 and 2 touchdowns. But then he hits you with like 2 for 13, 3 for 32, 2 for 28. It reminds me a little bit about Amari Cooper, I guess past Amari Cooper, because I was listening to a podcast today myself, and Amari Cooper apparently in 2020 has been super consistent. He's like within like a tenth of a point in his weekly score for the first 3 weeks, which is, I mean, that's 2020, right?
Because he's getting all the volume, you know what I mean? The volume's
Yeah.
consistent this year where it wasn't before. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and I want to throw this up there real quick from our boy Drew. Got a second last year for Kyle Allen and ran with it. Got to be similar for Mullins, no? I think so, especially if he plays this week again and he balls out, and all of a sudden maybe Jimmy Garoppolo needs to a couple more weeks to get that's But even right now, you might be able to get a second. If I had Mullins on a team that I knew was a straight rebuild, I'm spamming everybody in the league for a second and just see what happens. Worst case scenario, everyone says no. But if you're playing with 11, 13, 15 other guys, I have a feeling that one person will say yes. So, good talk on that. We got the Washington football team at the Cleveland Browns. Browns with another win, 2 in a row, looking good. Gibson, I think he looked decent in that game. Man, the Browns running backs are just nasty. I mean, you can say the name of a running back and they're good in Cleveland. And then, can we officially RIP OBJ? It ain't been good.
And he's still getting decent volume, isn't he? Like he's still got like 8 targets or something like that.
Yeah, he's getting the targets. It's just not converting. Now, I will say this. They do play Dallas next week. That could be the big OBJ game, because we've seen what Dallas has done against for the last 2 weeks. They've let everybody and their brother catch balls and put up yardage and get into the end zone. So this could be the OBJ week. This could be the Jarvis Landry week if you've been sitting on Jarvis and not happy about it. I think this is a week where you fire up all your Browns and go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not RIP and OBJ. I mean, he's maybe not getting touchdowns. He's still getting decent volume. So, I mean, it's the same. If we're gonna RIP him, then we RIP DJ Moore, and that's ridiculous because he has like the 9th most receiving yards. He just doesn't have any touchdowns. So, but he's not performing up to what the expectations are, right? So, I personally am not worried about OBJ yet. I'm worried about the quarterback, and maybe that affects him, and so it's just they go hand in hand. But um, I think things are going to change at some point in this offense. I mean, we're not going to. It's going to open back up once they kind of get more familiar with the system and all that, and timing gets better. I mean, it's early in the season, and you got to remember this is their first year playing in the system. So I think that, I think you just got to give them a little bit more time to get stuff down.
Yeah, I agree. OBJ on the season so far, 155 yards, 1 touchdown. But like I said, I think, I think starting with Dallas, I think they actually have a few games coming up where they're playing bad defenses, bad secondaries. And I think this could really be, maybe this is the time you reach out to that OBJ owner and say, hey, how do you feel about him, knowing that he's kind of got a stretch coming up, and maybe you capitalize on an OBJ owner that's not patient. But the next game we got here is the Bengals and the Eagles, and this was the good, the bad, and the ugly. Burrow, he looks good, man. He looks real good. Wentz, again, looks bad. And the Eagles wide receiver core, that looks ugly, man. And this is more talking about the injuries. Dallas Goedert is now on the IR. There was some weird stuff going on with JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I don't know if you saw that, where he was before the game, he was talking to Howie Roseman, and then they walked off the field together. And then he suited up, but he didn't get on the field. Greg Ward was out there. Deontay Burnett was out there. I mean, dude, Deshaun Jackson goes down. I mean, they're really. This seems to happen to him every year. Jalen Reagor has the UCL in his thumb. I don't know what's wrong in Philly. They can't keep wide receivers healthy, and unfortunately, it's trickling over to the tight ends now because Goddard's hurt. What do you do with that with the pass catchers in Philly? Is there anything that you want that's currently still wearing an Eagles uniform?
I mean, obviously we want Zach Ertz. I mean, that's like the one and only, and the guy that just, when there is no one else, pepper him with passes. So, Ertz is the guy. Is there a wide receiver I want? I mean, honestly, Greg Ward might be the best option. So, like, aside from that, I mean, maybe you do a little projecting and hope that try to get Alshon and hope he falls into some targets when he comes back. I can't imagine Alshon costs much right now. I cut Alshon in a league when it was time for cuts. So it's like, I mean, that's, my team was loaded, but I mean, that's a different story. But it's, I mean, I don't have high hopes for him, but I mean, there's no other options. And he does seem to play decently when he is on the field. It's just a matter of him staying on the field. Wentz, man, like, I've never been a fan, but this year I was like, you know what? I'm going to add a few shares this offseason. Thank God it was only a few shares. Like, that's all I'm saying, because, like, there's a lot of people from Philly, and there's a lot, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people in the industry from Philly. It seems like there's just a lot. And so you hear a lot more about Wentz than you do maybe some players from certain cities that are a little less represented, And so it kind of gets caught in your head a little bit. And man, like, trust your, I almost swore, trust yourself. And, it's, you got to trust yourself, and not just because everybody else is saying it doesn't mean it's right. So,
hey, listen, you got, Bill's trying to be proper here. You gotta trust your fucking gut sometimes and just be like, "This
Thank
guy
you.
ain't
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
This guy ain't for me." And and
turning
look,
all red.
before the season, I agree with you. I thought the Carson Wentz hate went too far, but golly, he is sure proving those people right this year. So.
I mean, he's still got the legs, though, right? So, I mean, that's the one positive that's going to, like, maybe not give him – he's not going to have those, like, just ridiculously terrible games typically. But, I mean, he's going to have to really improve on his timing. But at the same time, how many of those wide receivers has he worked with at any point in time to be able to get any sort of chemistry with? Like,
hey, him and Greg Ward have a good working relationship from
that's
last
it,
year.
though. Like, you tell me
Yeah.
any other wide receiver on that team. They
Nah.
drafted wide receivers. Djax got hurt right at the beginning of last season. There's no guys that he on that team that he's probably comfortable with and has that timing down, except for Zach Ertz. And Goddard's such a big target that it's kind of hard to miss him. So, I'm willing to give him. Well, I have to. More time, but
yeah.
I mean, he's not gonna. He shouldn't be like where he is as a quarterback. So
I like your pull of Greg Ward. He's a guy that you may want to see what the Greg Ward owner is doing, and maybe start off with a 4th round pick and see if they're paying attention to what Greg Ward's been doing. Because I actually think he could be decent. I think he could be a low end flex play, especially if you're in a league where you have multiple flexes. Because I mean, like you said, I live in the Philly market. I watch all the Eagles games, and at the end of last year, man, he and Carson did have a connection, and even in that game, they kind of picked up where they left off. So he may be a guy you can get on the cheap that can do some things for you. Next one, Raiders Pats. Pats running backs go wild. Cam struggles, and Foster Moreau and Renfro, they catch the TDs. Anything interesting about that game to you?
not particularly. I mean, it's just that New England, they knew to shut down Waller, and
Yeah.
they did 2 catches, 9 yards. Like, he's just a genius when it comes to shutting down the path to success for teams, and it's exactly what he did. And so they made Carr kind of figure out other things, and that's probably not Carr's strong suit, So they just ended up struggling. I mean, Renfro made a really nice catch in the end zone. So I mean, that was impressive. I'm not sure. He's so small. Like, it's really difficult to imagine that he's gonna be a consistent contributor, But I mean, he's probably a good guy for end of bench, wide receiver, something like that. But other than that, I mean, there wasn't much that was exciting, in my opinion. I mean, the Rex Burkhead had his big game. He'll have one more this year. We won't know when it is, and we'll hold him on our roster all year and hope it's the week we put him in.
Sony Michel did well too, 7 for 119. It was kind of crazy seeing all of the Patriots running backs go off at once. And I'll end this game on this. We always talk about the fallacy of logical coaching. We think that because this guy's doing good, it means that he's going to keep doing good because the head coach is going to see that he's doing good. And and we've been burnt so many times, except for Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick is literally what we wish every head coach would be. He has Cam Newton. He goes, oh, Cam Newton's a really good runner, so I'm going to let this guy run a lot. Darren Waller is the Raiders' best player. We need to shut him down, and if everyone else beats us, then everyone else beats us. Like, he's literally the epitome of logical coaching that we all try to put into fantasy, and we're always wrong about it, except for Bill Belichick. He's like, like, all right, Cam is going to run, obviously, this wasn't Cam's best game, but, game 1, hey, Cam's a good runner, let him run. Game 2, Cam's a good runner, let him run, and we'll figure the other stuff out. Our pass catchers are average, not great. And, hey, the best guy on the other side, we're going to shut that guy down, and you can figure out everything else. It's logical coaching at its finest.
The only problem for us is that he's smarter than us, so that we don't know which back to play. That's the best matchup for that defense. And so even though a guy was good last week, it doesn't mean he's going to be good this week, because yes, Cam's a good runner, but maybe that defense is exceptional against running quarterbacks. So guess what? Cam isn't going to be a runner that week. You know what I mean? So like, he's looking at it way beyond what even we're thinking.
Right.
So we're playing checkers, he's playing chess, and and that's the way it is. And we're just never going to be able to catch up to him.
I mean, I haven't even gotten the checkers out of the box compared to him playing chess. So that's that.
Same.
Bears Falcons. In Foles we trust, and I put a question mark after that. Russell Gage gets concussed in this game, and that leaves Calvin Ridley as the last man standing. What do you think about the new starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears, Nick Foles?
I think that they were hoping that they were going to be able to get Foles in as quick as possible. I think the worst thing that happened for the coaching staff was Trubisky playing decently the first 2 games, because you saw the first opportunity they had, they yanked him. And, so they definitely wanted Foles in there from the start. And I think they also needed him to get, comfortable back with the team and all that sort of thing. So, I mean, how excited am I about him? I mean, I wouldn't say I'm excited. He's a starting quarterback, so that's fine for Superflex. But, I mean, I don't expect him to be like a top 15 quarterback or anything, but I'm happy if he's my 3rd quarterback in like a Superflex, I guess.
So here's my thing with Nick Foles. And not even Nick Foles, the whole team. I almost feel like if you have one of the Chicago quarterbacks, you need the other. Because I'm just curious if Nick Foles goes out there and he loses 2 straight and he's looking bad at halftime of game 6, that Matt Nagy just doesn't pull the same move and put Trubisky. I just have a feeling that this is going to be one of those weird things. And if you're committed to a Chicago quarterback, you're going to need them both if that's the commitment you want to make. So just my thought process on it.
Yeah. I don't necessarily agree, because I don't know when they're going to pull the quarterback. I think that he showed that he's very willing to pull a quarterback mid-game. So yeah. I think that it's a guessing game regardless. So I don't think I want to have both, to be honest. But it's just a different thought process. It doesn't mean that one's right or wrong. It's just
and that's what I'm saying. If you're stuck with one, I almost feel like to insulate yourself, you either need to trade like Nick Foles or Mitch Trubisky plus a high end running back or wide receiver to upgrade that quarterback and get someone completely different, or get the other guy that you don't have just to insulate yourself against the switch. Just a thought process. It'll be interesting to watch. That's a very interesting team with a very interesting record. Rams Bills. Both quarterbacks go hard in that game. Henderson has a game. Beasley and Kupp go for over 100. That was a fun game to watch. A lot of offense. The Rams had to pull it close at the end. But any takeaways from that game?
I mean, Singletary looked pretty good when he got touches, so that was impressive. I did see a statistic today. I can't remember who tweeted it out, but it was the NFL has run 10 personnel, which is 1 running back, 4 wide receivers, no tight ends. Every team has run it 92 times, and the Bills have run it 50. So the Bills are essentially running a spread offense now all of a sudden out of nowhere. And it is just, my takeaway is I'm not happy if I have any of the tight ends. Like, I don't want, like, Croft did well, but, if I have Dawson Knox, I'm a little disappointed because I just don't know if I'm ever going to be able to play him if they keep doing that. But they are fun to watch now. And I mean, we kind of saw that playoff game of the second half of Josh Allen, where he just looked like he got startled and wasn't able to play. Like, it was almost like his body wouldn't respond, like in that playoff game. Like, he kind of did that the second half, but then he kind of snapped out of it and, got back to Josh Allen. And I mean, I was wrong on him. He's improved a ton. Every year he's improving, and so kudos to him for putting the work in to improve. And I
Let's not talk
mean,
about him too much because he's actually going to be in one of the tweets we found on the timeline. So we'll get a little bit more into Josh Allen a little bit later in the pod. But yeah, he's been balling out. I mean, whew. I drafted him as a second QB in a startup that I did, and I spent I drafted him in the second round, and I was like, man, did I go too early? That
you don't regret that now.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Also, is Aaron Donald a beast or what? Like, he literally just exploded their offensive line. Like, the second half of the game, he literally was just like, bump this. I am going to destroy everyone. And he became Thor with the hammer and just went insane.
I'm actually going to go with the or what, because I think calling him a beast is underselling what that man does on a football field.
He's literally a monster. Or a god, like it's just crazy. Like he is truly he's the most dominant defensive player since I want to say I was gonna say like Ed Reed because he was dominant, dominant. But there might be somebody in between there. But
you know what? You know who Aaron Donald is going to be? He's going to be the dude in Madden like 20 years from now that you open up your little Madden pack on Madden and it's like Aaron Donald 99 and you're like, I really remember my dad talking about this. It's kind of like, for
or when they do the all-time team or something, like he'll be the one of the defensive tackles or something.
And it'll be like kind of like people who may be a little bit younger than us who are like, you hear your dad talk about, Lawrence Taylor. And like, you just know by hearing about the stories and seeing the highlights on Sports Center or on NFL Network, like obviously that dude had to be a monster, but you kind of never saw him yourself. Yep. That's what Aaron Donald is going to be for like my kids. I'm going to be like, dude, this guy Aaron Donald, like, and it's amazing because it doesn't matter if the guy is 1 or 53 on a roster. They are elite athletes, like the top 1% of the top 1%.
Yep.
And Aaron Donald mows through people. Like these are elite athletes that Aaron Donald
he's just
makes look like
wrecking them.
High school kids. It's crazy. Yep. It's crazy. I agree with you on that. So Texans Steelers, Cobb and Connor, they flash in that game, the 2 C's. Cooks looks cooked, and Juju Smith-Schuster and Fuller get themselves touchdowns. Anything from there that you wanted to talk about?
So Cooks is still getting like 20% of the targets. So I'm not completely like writing him off. I think that I think it was JJ Zacharyson I was listening to, and he had mentioned that their schedule is starting to open up like right now. And so, I don't think you want to be getting rid of his like peripheral numbers are very similar to Fuller's. It's just a matter of Fuller, getting touchdowns and he doesn't. Right. So, and making the catches apparently. But, that's something that, just to keep an eye on. Don't sweat it too much. Maybe you can even buy Cooks for cheaper, right now. And, there's a decent shot that A, things start to kind of change for him, or B, there's a really good shot that that Fuller gets dinged up at some point. So, that's going to give him more opportunity as well. So I don't mind adding him. Connor looked good. He looked fast. He looks like he's not hurt anymore, and he looked pretty impressive to me. So, I regret not having him on any teams. Apparently, I regret having every player on my team because you got jaded Bill right now about his fantasy teams. But nah, it's but he's fun to watch. I always root for Connor, so like I'm a little biased that way.
Me too.
Hurts for Deontay getting hurt. He got concussed early on, and That should probably open it up for Juju a little bit. Maybe we see. I mean, I don't really think there's a wide receiver that's going to be able to replace his play his role. So I'm interested to see what they do without Deontay.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what that wide receiver room starts looking like. Want to move on to the next one. We got Titans at Vikings, and unfortunately, the biggest news for the Titans was that, well, 3 Titans at the time that I wrote this. Now it's come out that there's a 4th Titans player that is contracted COVID-19. You know, we talked about Derrick Henry. He was slipping a little bit. All hail King Henry after that game, man. Whew, that boy can run. And
Yeah.
the Justin Jefferson breakout game, man. Wow, 7 for 175. Hello, welcome to the league, Rook. I actually had to start Justin Jefferson in the league because of injuries and such, and man, I was glad I did.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good week to be put in that position. But any takeaways from that game? Obviously, one more thing I want to mention before I let Bill talk about this game. Titans Steelers. That game is up in the air right now. It looks like most of the major platforms are saying that if that game gets rescheduled to Monday or Tuesday, it's going to count for week 4. If it ends up being rescheduled for another week, it looks like this would be considered the Titans and Steelers bye week, and then they would reschedule games as necessary to make sure that that game gets played. So be careful. Put all your Titans and your Steelers in your flex spots for now, and hope that you hear more concrete information before the Sunday games start, but know that you may be put in a position where you have these guys in your flex spots and you're going to have to either take them out for someone who's in the Monday night game or possibly get a 0 if you kind of try to ride or die with them and it ends up being rescheduled, Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, so Justin Jefferson, that was huge for the Vikings just because they needed somebody else, because obviously when he only throws to Thielen and they have 15 guys on him, it makes the offense run pretty poorly. So the fact that there's at least somebody showing that they have to defend them is a positive sign. So yeah, that's pretty much all I take out of that. I mean, that should help their offense more. So it should open it up for everybody.
Cool. Panthers and Chargers. Mike Davis has himself a game. Herbert to Allen all day, it looked like, in that game. And by the way, newsflash, Austin Eckler is very good at the game of football, in case people had forgotten about that. Do you have any takeaways, Bill?
Not really. It's nice to see Herbert looking like a quarterback. And it's nice to see him. It's interesting that a lot of people just felt like Keenan Allen was not going to be good this year. And he's just one of the best wide receivers in football. He's not going to not be good. You know what I mean? It's a matter, and because Herbert at least looks like a professional quarterback. I mean, where else are you going to throw it but to the guy who gets open all the time?
Yeah.
So that's what I got out of that. It's nice but it's really nice to see Herbert playing well.
Yeah, it is. I got him in a couple spots. I was actually, I think, higher on him than other people. Wish I had been able to get him in more spots, but we'll see what's going on with that. So, Jets Colts. Is Braxton Berrios a flex play? He may not be if Jamison Crowder comes back and starts this week,
No.
but Sam Darnold throwing picks everywhere, and Mo Alley-Cox starting tight end. It looks like for your fantasy team. Any takeaways, Bill?
Yeah, I'm worried about Braxton Berrios because it's obviously Gase offense just funnels to the slot receiver. I mean, we saw it from Jarvis Landry all the way to here. And when Crowder comes back, he's not going to play. And Mo Alley-Cox, I'm worried about him too. He's looked awesome, but what happens now that Trey Burton's healthy and Jack Doyle's healthy? So now you have 3 tight ends. I mean, I know Jack Doyle's probably going to be, the inline blocker most of the time. So Trey Burton's going to be competing with Mo Alley Cox for time, and he didn't have that. So that's kind of my concern there. But yeah, the defense looks phenomenal for the Colts as well. So if you have a defense, a league with defense, that's a good team to have.
Yeah, and redraft. If they're out there on your waiver wire, maybe that's the pickup you make. Going to Cowboys and Seahawks. I mean, they say let Russ cook, but they're letting Dak cook too. Cedric Wilson, I just put a question mark after him because I don't know where the hell he came from. And just another alert. Tyler Lockett is a grown ass man. Anything for you, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, both those teams' defenses are pretty suspect, and so you have two good quarterbacks and you have two good offenses. I mean, we saw what we were going to see. I mean, that's pretty much what you expect. Cedric Wilson obviously was in there because they were in comeback, the whole time, so they were throwing everybody out on the field, and I'm not necessarily he might who does he take their role away from? You know what I mean? He's the fourth wide receiver, and so he's gonna get open because they have three other, all world wide receivers that they got to worry about. So yeah, and the only other thing I take from is DK Metcalf. He's got to learn to, his awareness maybe needs to get a little better and not showboat before he gets a touchdown. And kudos to the kid. You mentioned it in our FTC chat.
Trayvon Diggs, brother of Stephon Diggs.
Really good hustle by him to knock that ball away. But that should never even happened. I mean, that was just like a boneheaded play by DK. But hopefully he learns from it. He ended up making up for it, but I mean, that's not the point, right? Like the point is that could have cost his team the game.
And I think, I think he will. I mean, he seems like a kid who has a good head on his shoulders just from, seeing what his teammates are saying about him and stuff like that. And Russ kind of put his arm around him and said, I bet you're not going to do that again. And he was like, yeah, you're right about that. And, good hustle by Trayvon Diggs. He got burnt. Let's put that out there first and foremost. He got burnt by one of the best wide receivers in the league. I mean, we can kind of say that right now about DK Metcalf. But instead of just putting his head down and pouting, he got on his horse. He ran it down and, took an opportunity when he saw that DK Metcalf was slowing up and kind of holding the ball like a loaf of bread and made a good move. So, obviously it was a poor mental, mistake by DK Metcalf, but a good hustle by a rookie who obviously is showing that, no matter what the talent is, he's going to at least be out there and hustle.
Side note, FTC, if you want to get in our chat, DM us and we'll get you into the chat for our listeners.
You can hear about my my Trayvon Diggs love in there. And if that doesn't pull you in, I don't know what the hell will. Lions Cardinals, Bill, congratulations, brother. I don't think anyone gave you guys a chance, but you went in there. You beat the mighty Kyler Murrays and DeAndre Hopkins, and a good win by your team. It was good seeing Kenny G get a touchdown in his return. Murray did not have a good game at all. Kyler Murray not looking good, but DeAndre Hopkins still, kind of putting it up. 10 receptions, over 100 yards. I mean, he seems unstoppable right now.
He's the best wide receiver in football. I mean, it's him, Devontae, Mike. I think it's honestly it's him and Devontae that are the two best wide receivers in football. Michael Thomas is incredible for what he does, but he doesn't do everything. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where these two guys can do everything, and he's just amazing. Kyler's always going to struggle in certain passes just because he's so short. The line, he can't see over the line, so he's got to make passes based on windows. You know what I mean? And if defenders are smart enough to kind of hide behind the window, behind the side, not in the window, and then he throws the pass, I mean, he's going to make some of these bad interceptions. And I mean, I'm just not really sure until he gets more experience and understands what the defenses are doing, that he's still going to make those bad passes. As for that, I just okay.
Bucks Broncos, I feel like they're like that running back situation is a mess. Scotty Miller has another game, and Evans is literally the goal line threat. 2 receptions, 2 yards, 2 touchdowns. Anything you saw? Any takeaways on that?
Not really. Evans not getting a lot of targets, that's a concern. That's pretty much, I mean, my biggest thing that I took away from that is you can't only be getting thrown the ball on the 1 yard line.
I agree with you that is worrisome. Maybe you try to sell Evans if someone is buying high on those touchdowns. Packers Saints Sunday night. Aaron Rodgers continuing to roll, looking good. Breeze has a good bounce back game, but that may have been because Alvin Kamara is the running back 1 in fantasy right now. What do you think about anything from that game?
Yeah, I mean, Kamara's amazing. He's such a good runner. Rodgers looks incredible. Lazard looks like an NFL quarter or wide receiver. So, I mean, Lazard's been really impressive and made some really good catches. So, he might be a good buy for a cheap wide receiver.
And it's funny you slipped up and we're going to say quarterback, but he's playing so good he might actually be Aaron Rodgers' backup right now. So
there you go.
That's how good he is playing. Chiefs Ravens, Mahomes and Kelsey look good. Lamar and Mark Andrews do not. And the KC wide receivers, man, they're just going up and up. McCole Hardman flashed and burnt somebody for a touchdown. Tyreek Hill looked good. Hell, even their right tackle caught a pass. So put him in the wide receiver core. Any takeaways from that game?
I just think that everybody was worried kind of about KC. And I think that they actually were playing possum the first 2 weeks. They are so good right now that they basically played ABC football the first 2 weeks and won because they didn't want to show anything until they played Baltimore, and then they just stepped on their throats and made it to where they're really gonna get in their heads for the playoff matchup. You know what I mean? They just destroyed them, and Mahomes is just an alien.
I mean, I have the Mahomes Kelsey stack in that high stakes league, and it was a nice thing to have. It was a nice thing to have this past week. So that's the play by play from around the league. Bill, you killed it. A lot of good insight. It's fun to do it with you. Now we're going to go to the timeline. What we're known for, what we love to do, and this first one is from our boy Jay Sutt at DFF Jay Sutt, who is sending us stuff all the time. And remember, everybody, if you tag us in something, you have a better chance of getting it on the show because that's the stuff we look at. Obviously, we pull stuff from other parts of the timeline, but that's your best chance of getting in. So from our boy Jay Sutt at DFF Jay Sutt, 12-team PPR Dynasty League trade question: which side, JT or Saquon Barkley? So Bill, I'm gonna let you start this one off. Where we're talking about Dynasty, do you want JT right now, or are you gonna buy Saquon and hope for the best?
I think I'm gonna that's a tough question, right? Because my brain is so wired to just say Saquon, it just should be the obvious answer, but I don't think that's the answer I'm giving you because I want a running back who is playing behind one of the best offensive lines, and the offense obviously looks pretty decent, and so I'm going to take JT, and he's in that situation for the next 4 years, where by the time Barkley gets back, he's played 3 seasons. Is that right?
Yep.
And and so now he's on his 4th season. So he's still got 2 more seasons, probably with New York at a minimum. Is their offensive line going to be better? I don't know. There's a lot of I don't knows there. And so I want to take the known and get the points this season. So I'm going to take JT.
I'm with you. I'm taking JT, and our boy, our Dat Network brother Brian Haar is the biggest Saquon fan, and he on Trade Addicts podcast. If you're listening to us and you're not listening to the Trade Addicts for some reason, correct that mistake and listen to them. Those guys are awesome. They're super smart and have a great pod. But he made a mention about Adrian Peterson and how Adrian Peterson got hurt and then he returned and he rushed for 2,000 yards. My issue with that is I think that was AP's first real legit injury that cost him major time. We've seen this now 2 years in a row with Saquon. First it was the high ankle sprain, and now it's the torn ACL. And that puts me on edge a little bit, which is why I'm going with you. I'm going with JT. I think that, like you said, you nailed the offensive line situation is going to be good. The team is going to be good. Frank Wright as a coach is amazing. And I think, honestly, they can only get better by upgrading from Phillip Rivers, which I think that team is smart enough to do.
Yep.
Even if it's bringing in a guy next year or drafting a guy, I think they are a well-run organization that is going to figure that out when Phillip Rivers is past his expiration date. Jerry Shea, FF, our boy Jerry Shea, AP was not on the Giants. That is factually correct.
That's the point, though, right? Like that point of okay, well, Adrian Peterson got hurt and then ran for 2,000 yards. Adrian Peterson was playing behind a pretty solid offensive line, so that's where that's the missing ingredient for that to happen. And I mean, he was healthy game 1 and 2 before he got hurt, and he was averaging 1.8 yards per carry. So tell me, I mean, you're gonna have to get a lot of carries to get to 2,000 yards at 1.8. So I just don't. I think you're comparing apples and oranges there, and
about 1,000.
So yeah,
yeah, and that's kind of where and look, Brian, we love you, brother. But Adrian Peterson still is, by the way, a freak of nature. The fact that the man is still playing in the league, still playing at a pretty high level. I mean, considering that what his age is and the team he's playing on right now, no offense to you, Bill, but he's still doing well, considering all of that. So I think AP is, maybe a once in a generation player for his durability and his ability to kind of hold Father Time at bay, so to speak. So Saquon has not had the same luck so far. So we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, maybe the injuries stop after this year and Saquon does what he did year 1. But that's what worries me about the Saquon thing. And that's the reason why I would want JT. Jay Slut, hope that helps you out, brother. We both go JT. 64% of this poll also went JT. So, there you go. This next one is from another one of our Dat brothers, a Dat brother heavy show here. Rocky Dash Brainiac at Dynasty FF Addict, co-host of the Dynasty Junkies. Another great pod on the DAP network. Hopefully you're listening to that too, because those guys are awesome. Both those guys, both Rocky and Dustin, are going to be big time before we know it. Which QB would you rather own in a 12-team Superflex dynasty? Josh Allen or Dak Prescott? And this is the reason why I didn't want to get on Josh Allen too much earlier, because I wanted to talk about him here. And I think Rocky was putting out a lot of these polls to gauge where Josh Allen was going to fall in the pantheon of quarterbacks for dynasty. But I'll go first. I'm going with Dak. I think he is on a better offense as long as he stays in Dallas, which is always the wild card. I personally think he will, but he's not signed there long term yet, so that has to be something you take into account. But and that defense is terrible. So I have a feeling that he is going to be throwing a lot and a lot. And I don't think that's a 1 year rebuild on that defense. I mean, maybe Dallas can't figure that out, but the defense is very bad. And I think they're going to need at least 2 years to kind of make it reputable. So I go with Dak because I think he's on the better offense. And I think he actually is playing for the team that has a worse defense. What about you, Bill? Josh Allen or Dak Prescott?
Yeah, I agree, Dak. I don't have much to add, to be honest.
Cool.
I just think that, you know, playing on turf and all of that is an advantage as well. And,
Good point.
you know, in good weather a lot of times. So that's something to take into account, like when you're getting into the playoffs and that sort of thing. So that's an added bonus on top of everything that you said.
Great point. Great point about playing on turf and also, playing half your games in the dome. You know, you're not worrying about weather and the rain, the sleet, and the snow of playing cold weather games in November and December. Here's a good one, and we briefly talked about this in our DAP network chat, and I saw it, and I was like, this is perfect. This is Mike from at Dynasty Trades FF. He said he made $100 bet based entirely on if the Jets finish last in the league, which they're on a very good run to do that right now. He says the Jets will draft Trevor Lawrence. His buddy says the Jets will ride with Darnold and trade back. What say you, Twitter? I don't know what Twitter says, but you and I are going to talk about it a little bit since we kind of spoke a little bit about this. We were talking about in the DAP chat. So, Bill, what do you think? Is it do they ride and die with Darnold if they're last place in the league, or do they take that number one pick and turn it into Trevor Lawrence?
That's a really difficult decision, but I think that they're gonna know more than we will, right? Like they're gonna know if Darnold's ruined. We don't know that. Like that's something that we wouldn't be able to tell from the outside. I mean, it's hard to pass up on Trevor Lawrence, who's supposed to be the I don't know, the Andrew Luck. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
The guy that's coming in as like at that level, right? Like I can't remember the last quarterback that's like his level, maybe Tua, but then Tua got hurt. But like I can't think of another quarterback coming in that just since freshman year was like that, ordained top pick kind of guy. So I have a hard time believing that, this will be the third year of Darnold. So they're going to have a really good read on that. And, you're only going to get 2 more years of Darnold for sure before his salary balloons. So if you're not 100% sure on him, you got to go with Lawrence. And I mean, you could just trade Darnold. Somebody will buy him. I guarantee that. Like somebody loved him in the draft, and they'll give good compensation for him.
And I heard this on a pod today, and unfortunately, I listened to too many pods, so I can't always. I remember the facts. I don't remember where I heard them. Someone brought up a good point about if the Jets do get the number one pick, where would be a great place for them to trade Sam Darnold? Because I agree with Mike, by the way, that I think they take Trevor Lawrence. I think it's almost impossible for them not to.
Yep.
Phillip Rivers is just a check down guy at this point. New York trades Sam Darnold to Indy, and then he kind of slides in there. Paris Campbell's hurt, but he was looking good those first couple of weeks. Michael Pittman is hurt, but he looks like he could be a player. Maybe you get one more year out of T.Y. Hilton. You have JT, who we talked about earlier, a great offensive line, a great offensive coach who used to be a quarterback in the NFL, and Frank Reich. That could be a spot where you buy Sam Darnold on the cheap. You've already surrounded him with an offense that can really go. And worst case scenario, you have him in his 4th year. You find out maybe Sam Darnold was a bigger problem than any of the coaches that they've had in New York. You don't pick up that 5th-year option and you jettison him after that, and you reevaluate what you're going to do with your quarterback situation. I think that would be a great place for him. And whoever had that idea, I think it was actually a great idea. So I agree with you, Mike. I think I think if they have the number 1 pick, they're going Trevor Lawrence. And to be honest, I think if they have a pick in the top 5, they're getting either Lawrence or Fields personally. So that's what I think. I think they retool at the quarterback position, considering there's probably going to be a new head coach in New York if they do end up with the number 1 pick. But here's a question from Steve Dennis, our boy Steve, talking about the Jets. Is Lev Bell a buy low? Back soon. Sounds like no more Gase soon, which is something we just talked about. Probably playing somewhere else next year. Not expecting Bell Cow in the future. But could there be something there? So that's a good one. I mean, I guess I'll answer the first question. Is Lev Bell a buy low? Yeah, because I don't think you're going to have to pay as much even as you would have during the offseason. I don't think Gase is long for the New York Jets. It looks like rumblings out of New York say that if he loses this Thursday game, it could be the end for him. I don't know if that's true or not, but I have a feeling that if they pile up a couple more losses, that's exactly what's going to happen. Could he be playing somewhere else next year? Possibly. I mean, it seems like Gase never liked Bell. He didn't like the idea of paying a lot for a running back to come in. He's happier with the Frank Gores and the Kalen Ballages of the world. Don't know why, but he is. But we don't know what the next head coach coming in would feel about having a versatile running back like Lev Bell. So I don't know if he'll be playing somewhere else next year. But I mean, I think he's a buy low right now just because you're buying him for lower than what you would have even 3 weeks ago. What about you, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you'd have to pay. I mean, late second maybe. People are so down on him. So I think that's fine buy. I mean, it's just for the potential upside. Who knows? Like, who knows? In that offense, the offense is so shite that it looks like, I have zero expectations, but any depth at this point for a guy who might get a lot of carries, I mean, at that price, why not buy him?
Yeah, I agree with you. If you think he could bounce back, especially if there's an Adam Gase firing, shoot shoot a second over there, see what happens. Shoot a third over there, see what happens. See if you can get him at a much discounted price. So our next one here is from J Money at J Money Jared, our boy J Money. Dynasty Superflex full PPR, so full point PPR. And we're talking about our boy again, James Robinson. We started with him, we're going to end with him. Connor in a 21 second or James Robinson. So, Bill, who do you like here? James Robinson or Connor in the 21 second?
This is exceptionally easy for me. I don't expect either of them to be running backs next year for their teams. So I'm going to take the one who plays on the best offense, and I get a free second round pick. So I'm taking Connor very easily.
Bill, I'm with you 100%. We talked about this earlier at the top of the show. We both kind of agreed that James Robinson's value for someone who's trying to buy him is around a second round pick. So if I'm getting James Conner on top of what I think his value is, I'm with you. It's a smash for me. Give me that James Conner. Give me that second round pick. Even if he continues to ball out for the rest of the year, James Conner has been balling out except for week 1 where he got hurt. So, I mean, you may be getting similar production plus that second round pick. So, that was an easy one. You know, we wrapped it up on an easy one because we were killing the news. We killed the JT talk, the Josh Allen talk. We did all that, so we wanted to give ourselves a little bit of a layup at the end of this. But you know, want to thank everybody who came watch us today, was in the chat. Our boy Drew was in the chats. Let's try that again. Our boy Drew was in the chat. Steve
Bees
Dennis
in the trap. Bees in the trap.
Steve Dennis was asked us a great Lev Bell question. Jerry Shea was hitting us with selling James Robinson and reminding us that AP never played on this dreadful Giants team. We had other people that were in and out. You know, so we appreciate you guys coming live. Remember, every Wednesday, 9 p.m. on YouTube, on Periscope. If you're finding us on YouTube, just search Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. You will find us. Just subscribe and hit the bell. We're on here. There are other DAP Network shows that come in and out on there. So not only are you getting us when you subscribe, but you're getting a lot of other things as well with that. You know, thank you to everyone who's listening to us on podcast. You know, it's an hour and 10 minutes in that we've been doing this, and we talked a lot. You could have done a lot with that hour and 10 minutes, including listening to other podcasts, but you chose to listen to us. Bill and I both appreciate that. If you're listening, just make sure you're subscribed. Tell a friend, tell them to subscribe. Leave a rate and review. We do read those. They do influence what we do on the show, what we don't do on the show. It's very helpful to us. And just remember, you know, you can get your tweets on the show. You know, tweet at Fantasy Timeline. Tweet me at Real Fantasy TL. Tweet Bill at Super Duper Flex. We read all that stuff. We retweet, and you know, a lot of that stuff does end up on the show because we dig it. You guys are smart out there, and you guys ask really good questions, and we love to chat about it. So, Bill, I think we've done a great job this week, and I think we're out of here.
Late.